Welcome to the Barbara Frum Library. This evening, I want to talk to you about willpower and mindfulness meditation. And it all started about 2 years ago, October 2013, when one evening I got a call from my daughter. And she is a naturopathic physician with a clinic in Nutley, New Jersey, northern New Jersey, not too far from Manhattan. And she says to me, "Daddy, I need your help." I said, "Sure, what's up? What do you need my help with?" And she says, "Daddy, I've been running my clinic for 10 years now. I've been seeing all kinds of patients with all kinds of conditions, diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, high stress levels, all kinds of conditions. And I normally do an assessment, in-depth assessment on my patients, see what's wrong with them, and I recommend a get well plan for them. And more often than not, it involves some changes in nutritional habits, and it involves some stress reduction and some exercises. And I always ask them, are you okay with this plan? Can you do it? Does it make sense to you? Will you be able to hold on to the plan? And of course, they all say, "Yes, doctor, of course, doctor, we'll do exactly what you say." Because by that time, they've seen their family doctor, they've seen maybe some specialists, and they're quite desperate to get better. And so they leave, and they come back a month or two later for their follow-up visit, and they often look much worse than they did when they came first for the first visit in the first place. And then I asked them, my daughter says, "What happened? Did you do what I recommended?" And they say, "Well, doctor, for the first week or two, it was okay, but then it all fell apart." What fell apart? What happened? And they normally say, "Doctor, we ran out of willpower. We couldn't hold on to your recommendations. The diet, the exercise, the stress reduction, we just couldn't do it anymore." So my daughter says, "Daddy, will you help me understand this willpower thing and figure out how can I help my patients boost their willpower and get enough of it so they can stick with the recommended treatment plan, get well plan that I recommend for them." And with this started our deep dive, so to speak, research journey into the science of willpower. We studied over 100 peer-reviewed papers, over 15 different books, 3 university courses, and countless presentations on the topic by all kinds of scientists. One of the first studies that we came across is this one from the American Psychological Association, 2012, where they surveyed 1,928 different people from all walks of life. And 31% of these people said that they cannot make the change they wanted to make in their wellness overall, nutrition, exercise, stress reduction, and so on. And the reason why they could not make those changes in their life is because of lack of willpower. So this actually finding by the American Psychological Association corroborated the findings of my daughter in her clinic with all of these patients. So we knew we had to look into the science of willpower and see what are the scientists saying about this, and are there any ways in which people can actually boost their willpower? And of course, you might have guessed, of course there are, otherwise I wouldn't be standing here in front of you tonight. So I wanted to ask you at this point, who here has tried to implement some major changes in their life? Not necessarily just wellness or nutrition, but perhaps other important things that you wanted to achieve, and were not able to just because of this thing called willpower. that it ran out at some point. I know I did. So, a few of you. So, in the process of our studies, we consolidated and synthesized everything that we've learned about willpower into a 9-module program that we call the Willpower Program. If we have time at the end, I'll talk more about the other ones. But tonight, I want specifically to talk to you about 2 of them. And that's willpower and mindfulness meditation. So why is willpower important to you? Why should you care about willpower? And willpower is important because scientists say it's the scientifically most accurate predictor of our success in life. There is nothing that science has been able to identify that can predict your success in life more than willpower. Not your good looks, not your IQ, not any innate talents that you might have. It all comes to willpower. And even giants like Mozart or Beethoven or Kobe Bryant or Jose Batista or Roger Federer, you name them, they would not have gotten to where they did without that willpower. And I'll show you tonight a few scientific findings that actually support that statement. So what is willpower? One of the luminaries in the field of willpower is Professor Roy Baumeister out of Florida State University. And I've corresponded to him, so I do try to correspond with the scientists that I'm going to mention today to you, and I did with most of them. And he defines willpower as having 3 components. Number 1, our ability to apply self-discipline and self-control and control our desires. That's number 1. Number 2 is persistently pursuing our long-term goals, even in the face of adversity. So we have one which is instantaneous, very transitional, it's an impulse, it's a self-control kind of thing, and the other one which can go over decades. And number 3 is our ability to lead meaningful, productive, interpersonal relationships in our life. 3 components. I'll talk more specifically about the first 2. In other words, self-control and what scientists call grit, our ability to pursue long-term goals despite any adversity and barriers and hurdles that we might face. So it all started in the late 60s, early 70s with the marshmallow test. Anyone here heard about the marshmallow test? Quite a few of you. And the father, so to speak, of the marshmallow test is Professor Walter Mischel. Today he's in his 80s. Interesting that although he started these experiments in the late 60s, only last year he came out with his book called The Marshmallow Test, or The Marshmallow Experiment, after so many years. But what he did in that test, at the time he was at Stanford University, so he gathered 4- and 5-year-old kids from the local daycare and brought them into the experiment room, one by one, and set them at the table and put 2 marshmallows in front of them. Oh, it could be Oreo cookies or other things. And he said, and a bell that they could ring. And he said, kids, you have 2 options now. You can have the one marshmallow and eat it at any time. Just ring the bell, the experimenter will come in and you can have your marshmallow. Or, if you can wait for 15 minutes without touching the 1 marshmallow, then you can have the 2 marshmallow. 100% return on your investment for 15 minutes of willpower effort. And he conducted that experiment many times in the early 70s, and what he found was very interesting. 66% of the kids could not withhold their desire to devour that marshmallow. And so some of them lasted a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 14 and a half minutes, but they couldn't wait the 15 minutes. And only 33% of them could wait out the full 15 minutes, and then they got the 2 marshmallows. And what he found, he followed up with the very same individuals into their high school years and into the young adulthood, early adulthood years, into their 30s. And what he found consistently, a very high correlation, was that the 33% who were able to refrain from this immediate gratification urge that they had, those people were most successful in all aspects of their lives. Education, career, family life, financial stability, marriage, social, no drugs, no crime, you name it, they had it. So from that he concluded that there is a very tight relationship between our ability to control our desires, our drive for immediate gratification, and our success later in life. So soon after Professor Michel came out with the initial results of his studies, parents all over the US dragged their Johnny or Jane, the little boy or girl, to the dinner table, set them down, put the marshmallows in front of them, pulled out the stopwatch and said, "Okay, Johnny, let's see how strong your willpower is." And you can imagine the horror on their face when they discovered that little Johnny or little Jane could not even hold for 2 minutes. And they kind of dug into that marshmallow well before the 15 minutes that produced that high correlation with success. So Professor Michel immediately recognized that parents would now start worrying that their kids are doomed for life. That if they could not hold on for the 15 minutes when they're 4 or 5 years old, what prospects are there for their future? And he came out soon after that, and he said, no, people. You misunderstood me completely. It is not like IQ that stabilizes at early age between 5 and 10, and then we cannot do anything about it beyond. Willpower is a quality that you can develop if you work at it. And there are very specific ways and approaches that if we adopt and practice them on a regular basis, they can boost our willpower. And in fact, as recent as last year or the year before, there were some interviews with him in all kinds of contexts. PBS, Charlie Rose, all kinds of people interviewed him, and he actually explains how it is we can boost our willpower. So many scientists studied this field, not only Michel and Angela Duckworth. And one of them is Mark Muraven out of University of Albany, a neighbor. And he says in one of his papers, willpower can be improved by the regular practice, and that's the operative word here, a regular practice, day in, day out, of small, and I've added here the word trivial, acts of self-control. So if you do small, simple, trivial things every single day, again and again and again, ultimately you will boost your willpower in a measurable way. So the question is, what are those small acts of self-control? And I want to share with you here 3 of them as examples. Scientists, some of them say that if those small acts of self-control are within the realm of your long-term goal, it's better, and you will stand a higher probability of boosting your willpower and achieving your long-term goal. Other scientists say that it actually doesn't matter whether you choose a simple, completely unrelated act of self-control or you choose one that's related to your long-term goal. So I wanted to include both of them for you here. From our work, we found out that most people struggle with two things more than others. The first is managing their time, and the second is managing their nutrition. So the first two examples, I want to talk about managing your time and managing your wellness and nutrition. And then I will talk about an example that doesn't relate necessarily to any specific goals that we might have. So let's start with managing our time and achieving our to-do list every single day. So there's not a lot of science behind it, to be honest, and all the practitioners, the coaches, the advisors, and so on, in the area of time management, they all say the same thing, and it's pretty straightforward. Make your to-do list, prioritize it, estimate the amount of time each, at least the top priority tasks, will take. And then schedule it in your calendar. So from this time to this time, I'm going to do priority number 1. And I estimated it would take me 35.5 minutes or whatever. And then I will do number 2 and number 3. And basically, if you're able to pursue this kind of fairly simple strategy, you'll be able to manage your time on a day-to-day basis a lot more effectively. And yet, we find out that it's so difficult for us, me included, to actually follow this prescription, if you like. Why? Because somewhere along the line, we don't have enough willpower to actually stick even with the simplest of plan. Make a list, prioritize it, estimate the time, schedule it. We can't do it. So one way to take this and try and use it as an example to build up your willpower is just pick one item. Not the whole list. The whole list can have 10, 20 items even. I know mine does. Pick one item, one high priority item, and say this might be your item number 1 or number 2 or number 4 or whatever it is. Estimate very specifically how long it will take you to accomplish this. It could be 5 minutes, could be half an hour, it could be an hour or 2. Schedule this item in your calendar very specifically. I will do this thing tomorrow morning between 10 and 10:30. And then try and stick to just this simple routine. On a regular basis, every day or every week, pick one item, estimate the time, schedule it, and do it. And put down a little calendar or a little journal, if you like, to say, yeah, today it worked. No, it didn't work today. The next day it did work, and so on. And over time, scientists like Mark Moraven and others say that if you pursue this kind of simple routine day in, day out, ultimately you will boost your willpower in areas that are not just necessarily related to time management, but in all areas of life. There is this generalization effect, the way neuroscientists call it, that transcends from the area that you practice into all areas of life. Second one is diet. Diet is a big challenge for us. And the reason it is a big challenge for us is that evolution has hardwired our brains to love food. And that is something which is very difficult for us to counteract, because that's the way our brain is actually physically hardwired. hormones start flooding our brain and driving us to the fridge, so to speak. But the sad thing is that in our Western society, particularly in North America and other places, consumerism, the consumer culture, has actually embedded all these habits and customs of eating a lot more than evolution actually told us we have to eat in order to survive and sustain our breed. And this is how we end up with huge plates everywhere we go in any restaurant, overloaded to the brim. So here are a few, again, simple tricks to try and boost your willpower in this area of diet control. Very simple. So number one, throw your big plates away and buy smaller plates. But physically throw them away. Don't put them elsewhere, because 2 days later you'll come and pull them out of that closet and you put them again on your dinner table. Smaller plates that you can load less onto. That's number one. Number two, never go food shopping when you're hungry. And they don't necessarily need a ton of willpower to actually practice. Just schedule, like we said before in time management, schedule your time when you go food shopping after you had your breakfast or lunch. So that's number two. Number three, never buy anything that's not on your list. So eat your breakfast or lunch, make your list, and then buy exactly and only what's on that list. And just try these three things for 3 months. And again, write down in your change journal when you were successful and when you fell through. And over a period of time, and scientists say it's about 3 months, it could be 6 months, but over a period of time, you will start noticing that your willpower is improving. And not only in the area of food, but in all areas of your life. So the third one is completely unrelated to any long-term goal that you might want to pursue. And that is using your non-dominant hand, in my case it's my left hand, for normal day-to-day tasks. And scientists say that if you do it on a regular basis, just instead of using your right hand, your dominant hand, use your left hand, then over time, 3 months to 6 months, you will boost your willpower in ways that you will actually notice that in other areas of your life. So about a year ago, I said, I want to try this out myself. And so the first thing I did is I moved the mouse from the right-hand side of my laptop to the left-hand side. And I did this for about 2 weeks, and I had no control over it, and it would slow me down. But then after 2 weeks, I started mastering this task and gotten used to it. And today, it's on the left side. And in fact, when I move it to the right side, then it feels a little bit strange and funny. Once this was habitualized, then I went to the next one, which is brushing my teeth with the left hand. I was hurting myself for the first couple of weeks. And it is amazing, actually, to see how these small circular movements, actually, the level of dexterity they require and fine motor skills. So again, it took me some time. And here, because I do it only once a day, the other time, actually, twice a day. So one with the electrical brush and one with this manual brush. But after a couple of weeks, I habitualized that, and today I only brush with my left hand. And then I took a leap of faith and started shaving, as you see here, with my left hand. Today, actually, I did as well. So I do every day. So this is a lot harder to master. In the beginning, I had some bloody accidents, so to speak. But over time, I've habitualized this one, not to the same extent as the other ones. And scientists say that over the long haul, 2-3 months of doing this on a regular basis, and you can just choose whatever you want, opening the doors, eating, whichever routine you want, doing it with your non-dominant hand. And over time, scientists say that it will help you boost your willpower. Mine, I can say, was for sure, or is today much better than it was when I started all of this, but I combine also meditation with it, and so I don't know exactly which part belongs where. So, in summary about willpower, what you have to do is fairly simple. Choose those simple routines based on the examples I mentioned, or anything else you can think about that you know is not too onerous on you, that you know that you will be able to do day in, day out, that it's not a big stretch on your self-control or willpower. Do it until you habitualize it for a few weeks. Continue to do it after that, but then once you habitualize it, pick another one and another one and another one. And these repeated actions will, over a period of time, boost your willpower to a point where you and people around you will start noticing and say, you know what, Daddy, like my daughter said to me, we're seeing some change in you. So try it out. And I want to move now to mindfulness meditation. So a definition I like to use is which was advanced by John Kabat-Zinn. He's kind of the father of mindfulness meditation in the West, started the practice in 1979 at the General Hospital of Massachusetts. And the definition he likes to give is, and it's in his book and all his talks and so on, is the awareness that arises from paying attention in a very specific way, on purpose and in the present moment, and without judgment. So we'll talk about these different elements in this definition in a while, in a couple of slides, but bear this definition in mind as we go through the rest of the talk. So scientists in particularly the last 10 years, there's been an explosion online, on the internet, on media, in the press, television, explosion, a flood of talks and presentations and papers and books about mindfulness meditation. It's like it's gone viral. People can't explain exactly what combination of circumstances have caused it to become so popular, but in my mind, mindfulness meditation is probably the most powerful and the most popular self-improvement technique or tool or method ever invented. And of course, mindfulness meditation is 2,500 years old. It comes from the wisdom tradition of Buddhism and some others, and it's not something invented in the West at all. It was popularized here by John Kabat-Zinn, and we'll see him in a video in a minute. And the benefits are all scientifically researched by scores of different scientists, and they include better emotional regulation and self-control, the same thing that the kids actually did not have, 60% of them. Better concentration, better awareness, better interaction with others, our ability to read others and feel viscerally what they're thinking, where they are in their head, and be able to respond in an appropriate way. So our interaction with others. Our access to our inner wisdom and our intuition improves with mindfulness. Creativity improves with mindfulness. Stress reduction, anxiety, depression, and even help with treating addiction. And we'll see a couple of these things in a video in a couple of minutes. In the early 90s, the Dalai Lama became very interested in this. And he funded a research, he sponsored a group of Tibetan monks to come to the US to undergo scientific studies of their brains to determine what impact mindfulness meditation has actually on the brain. So the young guy here is Dr. Richie Davidson, one of the early experts in the area of mindfulness meditation research and its effect on the brain. And the monk is Mathieu Ricard. And Mathieu is a Frenchman. At the age of 26, he left a promising, brilliant career at the Pasteur Institute. He's a molecular biologist. And he left all of this behind and went to Tibet, not to Tibet, to India, and adopted Buddhism and became a monk. And today he's one of the kind of right-hand man of the Dalai Lama. And science defined him as the happiest man ever measured by science in the world. So what did they find in this scientific research? They find, first of all, that the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain that's responsible for what we call our executive functions, our rational thinking, long-term planning, and so on, that area of the brain is thicker, the cortex itself, and also better connected. There are more synaptic connections in that area of the brain. They also find that our alarm system in the brain, the small structure in the brain that's called the amygdala, which sends stress signals out when we perceive a threat, real or imaginary, that amygdala, which is not a big structure anyway, becomes smaller in those long-term meditators, people who have meditated for years and years and years. So they're able to better withstand all kinds of distressing situations in life. So what they did is they put Mathieu and scores of others into the fMRI machine, this big machine here that you can see, and they exposed them to distressing cries of women and children. And non-meditators would respond in a stressful way, and the stress centers in the brain would light up. But with the long-term meditators, they noticed, based on the fMRI images, that their response to those distressing signals is more attenuated, more controlled than in the non-meditators. And they actually conducted scientific studies on each and every aspect, each and every benefit that I mentioned in the list before, and scientifically proved them all. So I want to share with you this segment.
Gobbledygook. There's so many different compelling studies that are showing that this is not New Age gobbledygook. This is potentially transformative of our health and well-being psychologically as well as physically. It can be useful for anxiety, depression, stress reduction.
There have been a number of studies that show mindfulness can lead to those benefits, as well as improvements in memory and attention. And at the University of Massachusetts, Judson Brewer, a psychiatrist and neuroscientist, uses mindfulness to treat addiction.
This is just the next generation of exercise. We've got the physical, exercise components down, and now it's about working out how can we actually train our minds.
Dr. Brewer is trying to understand how mindfulness can alter the functioning of the brain. He uses a cap lined with 128 electrodes.
We're going to start filling each of these 128 wells with conduction gel.
The electrodes are able to pick up signals from the posterior cingulate, part of a brain network linked to memory and emotion.
This is all just picking up electrical signal from the top of your head.
Since attending the mindfulness retreat, I'd been meditating daily and was curious to see if it had an impact on my brain.
We're going to have you start with thinking of something that was very anxiety-provoking for you.
Okay.
When I thought about something stressful, the cells in my brain's posterior cingulate immediately started firing, shown by the red lines that went off the chart on the computer screen.
Just drop into meditation.
Okay.
When I let go of those stressful thoughts and refocused on my breath, within seconds, the brain cells that had been firing quieted down, shown by the blue lines on the computer.
That's really fascinating to see like that.
Dr. Brewer believes everyone can train their brains to reach that blue mindfulness zone, but he says all the technology we're surrounded by makes it difficult.
If you look at people out on the street, if you look at people at restaurants, nobody's having conversations anymore. They're sitting at dinner looking at their phone because their brain is so addicted to it.
You really think there's something in the brain that's addicted to that?
Well, it's the same reward pathways as addiction, absolutely.
I'm, on mobile devices all day long, and I feel like I could go through an entire day and not be present.
And what's that like?
It's exhausting.
Yeah. So all of this is leading to a societal exhaustion.
The irony is many of the people responsible for creating the gadgets that distract us are themselves practicing mindfulness. More than 2,000 people from companies like Google, Facebook, and Instagram showed up earlier this year in San Francisco for a mindfulness conference called Wisdom 2.0.
Please welcome our guest.
So at this point, I'd like to invite you to experience mindfulness meditation for a couple of minutes with me here. If you don't feel comfortable doing this, no problem at all. I've had, in most of my talks actually, there is one or two people who are not comfortable. That's absolutely okay. But if you are comfortable, then I invite you to sit comfortably in your chair, erect, head balanced on shoulders. Either close your eyes or at least lower your gaze so you're not distracted. Your hands on your lap or wherever they're comfortable. And take 3 deep breaths. And now resume breathing at your normal pace. Not too fast, not too slow, not too shallow, and not too deep. And bring your attention to your feet. The way your feet are touching the floor, your socks, the shoes, any pressure sensation. Just focus entirely for a few seconds just on your feet and the sensations you're getting from there. And move your attention now to your buttocks. You're sitting on the chair, the pressure that you may feel, the touch. Just try and detect, almost like an engineer, any sensation, any pressure points from the contact with your chair. And bring your attention now to your breath. The flow of air in through your nostrils and out through your nostrils. Try and focus your attention completely on your breath. See if you can sense the cooler temperature of the air flowing in and slightly warmer temperature of the air flowing out. See if you can detect the difference in temperature. See if you can detect the inversion point, the pause between the inflow and the outflow and the next inflow. See if you can sense that point where the air changes direction. And if you have any thoughts coming through your mind, just gently recognize, oops, my mind has wandered away. Let the thought go and bring your focused attention back to your breathing. And I'll be silent now for a few seconds and allow you to practice this in silence. And when you're ready, open your eyes and bring your attention back to the front. So this gave you a taste of what mindfulness meditation is about. And it's not about relaxation, although you may experience that as a byproduct, but it's all about paying this focused attention on the bodily sensations. The most popular is a breathing meditation. Another very popular is what they call the body scan, where you focus your attention on 36 different parts of your body in sequence from your toes all the way up. But it's all about controlling your attention, the circuits of the brain that direct where your attention would be, and focusing your attention on objects of your choosing. And if your mind wanders away, which happens, I mean, that's the way our mind is wired, we just gently bring it back. It goes away, wandered into the future or the past or wherever we're thinking, we bring it back. Wanders away, we bring it back. And just this repeated focus on our attention, the attention circuits in our prefrontal cortex, actually strengthen our prefrontal cortex and strengthen our self-control, our compassion, our non-judgmental way of looking at the world around us. All these good things that scientists found, they come from us training our brain to pay attention in that very particular way, that very focused way. So mindfulness meditation is very different from other types of meditation, like transcendental meditation or relaxation or progressive muscle relaxation, many different types. This is different, and it's very particular in what it focuses on. So how do you practice it on a day-to-day basis? There are several ways. The simplest is just do what you do anyway, every day, but do it in a mindful way. Eating, walking, brushing your teeth, whatever it might be. So I used to eat my breakfast in front of the television with the BBC or CNN on, the Globe and Mail on my lap, and I would eat and look at the BBC and read the paper and eat a little bit. And when I would leave the house, my wife sometimes, one time at least, she asked me, "How was this new cereal that I bought for you?" And I said, "Cereal? What cereal? I had toast for breakfast." No, darling, you had cereal. So about a year ago, I stopped that completely. And now I eat my breakfast at the table, not in front of the television, no radio, no television in the background, no newspaper, and I focus my complete attention on the cereal, on the breakfast. The taste, the temperature, the texture, the colors, the sights, the noise, the crinkling noise of the cereal, all the sensation experiences associated with eating that breakfast and any meal of the day. So that is one way. I'm a long distance runner. I do half marathons and such. You too. Congratulations. So I actually try to meditate whilst I'm running. I'm doing that body scan whilst I'm running. So I'm focusing my attention on my toes and the sensations of my toes as I'm running. Then I'm focusing my attention on the sensation of my shorts rubbing against my legs. And then, every part of the body. So you can do mindfulness meditation during any activity that you do anyway on a regular basis. So that's one way. Another way is to plug in your earphones and listen to guided meditation audios, and I'll mention 2 of them here, for just 5 or 10 minutes, and you can do it anywhere. You can do it, you can park your car at your office parking spot or whatever, and before you step into the office, pause and meditate for 5 minutes, and then leave your car and go into the office. At lunchtime, in the evening, on the train, anywhere you want, 5 minutes is also beneficial. And I'll talk about the guided programs in a moment. And then the third one is what brings you the most benefit, and that's the full 20 to 30 minute meditation session, again, using recorded audios. And it could be, again, this breathing meditation or the body scan. Yoga is actually very, very helpful for mindfulness meditation as well, because, again, you have to focus your attention on the different yoga poses, and that has the same kind of effect as the mindfulness meditation you've just done. 2 resources that I can recommend. One is an 8-week program by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn himself, and it's free, and there is the link for it, and I'll talk about these resources in a moment. And the other one is from University of California at Los Angeles, and they have a program, again, which is free with all kinds of recordings for mindfulness meditation. So, and if you Google, you'll find many others. I mean, those are 2 that I've grown accustomed to, but there's tons, endless resources. Some of them cost money, some of them are free. And you can take a course. Typically, they run 8 weeks. With that, I'd like to thank you very much. I know that we're about a little late, but thank you very much.